what he lose like 25 bowl games in his career? Like, I mean, it just I just don't understand how you can lose all the talent that you lost, and because you potentially have the best college football player on your team that's not a quarterback, makes you just better.
I mean, the only talent that we truly lost was CJ.
And your offensive line
I
and
mean, okay, so you lose two offensive linemen or three, but
three offensive
okay, so
linemen.
right.
Yeah.
Well, right, but what I'm saying though is like at your skilled positions, the only one you lost was CJ. At your skill positions, the only one you lost was CJ. You
Yeah,
return
but CJ
you
but
return
CJ was the
Marv.
number 2 overall pick.
You're
There's
not
there I
wrong,
mean, he's
but
good.
you're not wrong. But what I'm saying though is that's the only skill position you lost. You return Travion, you return Mayan, you return Marvin Harrison Jr., you return Emeka Buka, you return Julian Fleming, and then you add to that receiving core Brandon Ennis, um, Jalen Ballard, who's supposed to now be the deep threat that we never really had previous. They added those pieces, and then um from what I've read, Core, to your point though, to what you're saying though, what I've read is people are more confident in a Ryan Day first starting quarterback than they would be with Michigan style offense. Is basically what they've
But
said.
but
Th- th-
but Michigan started the year with Cade McNamara last year and went
I-
12-0 with JJ McCarthy, and
eh,
he could only get better in an
Okay,
offseason, and you
you're
return
not
everybody.
you're not wrong, but I mean, if you want to go off of that, you started the season last year with the three worst teams in college football.
Actually, that's not true.
They were
Well,
the
coming into the year,
they were the
UConn was
bottom
not the
three.
third worst team. UConn
Not
was
when you
actually
played
UConn
them.
was in the top 100. Well,
At the beginning
okay,
of the year, when all those pre-rankings came out and that strength of schedule came out, your first three games were against the worst, second worst, and then third worst team in college football.
and at the end of the year, we had the best win in college football of any team in football.
I'm not okay. So
I all I'm saying is I'm sick of the bias because they give no love, and maybe it's a Harbaugh thing. But if it was anybody else, if Alabama would have won the national title last year, as good as Georgia is, they would say that Alabama would be the best team in the SEC. Any other I don't know why they just give no love to Michigan. That's fine.
Mhm.
I don't need it. Doesn't matter because when you hold up the trophy at the end of the year, it doesn't matter who they picked. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, like it's kind of interesting that nobody talks about them when they're the ones who returned everybody. If you were talking about Michigan last year and Ohio State last year, it's understandable. CJ Stroud was the starter. He's coming back. He did not you guys reloaded on offense. So it has nothing to do with that. It's just they give no love. That's all.
Fair.
Also, was
fair.
there a big boxing fight in Toledo, Ohio last night?
Yeah.
I
Um,
saw that on Twitter. I was like, what the heck?
yeah,
What
Toledo,
some
happened?
Ohio.
yeah, my buddy from work actually went. It's some dude who's from the city who's like a champion. I don't know, dude. There's so many like weight classes and championships in
Yeah,
boxing.
but he walked out with Shakur Stevenson.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Shakur Stevenson was
Where
holding
was
his
it at the
belt on his
Huntington?
arm.
Was it at the Huntington Center?
Yeah, Huntington Center.
The dude is like 14-0.
Nice.
And I guess he knocked the dude. He's 14-0 and has 14 knockouts
Hell
and
yeah.
whatever. And he knocked the dude out, I guess, in like the second round or something.
Damn.
Damn,
I don't know.
That's
I don't
sick.
know. I was like at Toledo, Ohio. I was like, oh, that's dope.
Yeah.
that's crazy that they put all those people in the Huntington Center.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of Toledo, Drew, I was talking to my dad about this. You know what's really, really hilarious to me, and I've realized this like 13 years later, or like
What?
15, was remember going up to like tournament games when we were in high school for senior high, and we'd go up to Toledo, and they had like those old bleacher seats
Hmm.
like BG had.
Hmm.
Well, one year it was like my freshman or sophomore year or freshman year and then sophomore year we collapsed them. Like literally because we were jumping like the wooden bleachers just like and like the steel structure just collapsed. And so senior high had to pay to refix those. And by the time I got there, my freshman year of college in 2008, they completely redid their entire basketball arena, took out all of those bleachers that our high school paid for, and just put in like brand new seats. It was like, huh, cool. I found
Fuck
that.
that senior high money.
Yeah, fuck that money. We're just gonna redo it anyways. All right, guys, let's get to the heart of the show here. We're going to be just conversations about Indiana and Purdue football. Um, I just wanted to start off with my one main thing that I just have about Indiana. They are going to be on what I like to call the Cleveland Browns train of quarterbacks. They're going to be on their third starting quarterback in 3 years. Penix Jr. left. They're going to have to replace him. Um, Here are their quarterbacks. A redshirt junior Dexter Williams, who is currently injured and is out for the foreseeable future. Junior Blake McKibben, who is a walk-on, so not really a scholarship player. Redshirt freshman Tavian Jackson, redshirt freshman Brendan Sorsby, and freshman Barack Lowry. And then they did add a quarterback here in the transfer portal as well. So I just wanted to start off a conversation here about, the quarterback situation there in Indiana. It looks very bleak, you know,
Blah.
just very blah.
Yeah, not exciting. Uh, Dexter Williams was pretty fun to watch last year. He's very athletic playmaker, but I think it was the Purdue game last year. He got messed up. I think he tore all up in his knees. I don't
Yeah,
know,
they said it was a
MCL, AC,
contact
whatever,
knee injury that. Oh no, he suffered a non-contact knee injury against Purdue.
which is the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I got a lot of questions for this quarterback room. Who's gonna
Who's the
be
starter?
QB1
Yeah.
and who's good?
Corey?
I mean, I think it's literally going to be an open competition, obviously, because you've got so many different moving pieces. So I think it's just going to be who performs the best. I think at Indiana, at schools like Indiana, Purdue, the smaller schools, you kind of need a one and a two, because once you're going up against the hardest teams in the Big Ten, they're going to beat you up. And it doesn't
Mhm.
seem like, from previous seasons, it doesn't look like Indiana's quarterbacks offensive line are going to hold up enough. So it almost feels like you have to have two guys that you really believe in.
Right.
One guy may be the best guy, but they lost their starter from last year in the transfer portal. They lose a lot of talent, but they also gained a lot of talent. But I think
Where
I
did
think
he go?
I think he went to Michigan.
Wouldn't
Bazelak?
Penix Jr.
Oh, Penix is in Washington.
Yeah.
That's right. And
This
then
past year they lost Connor Bazelak, who's now at BG.
Tuttle
And
is now the
yeah,
backup at Michigan, yeah.
yeah, Jack Tuttle.
Uh-oh, so you're going to see Bazelak there, VG, Drew?
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
dude, I'm kind of excited. I think he's going to tear up the MAC,
Yeah.
take a step back.
If I had Corey, to your point, though, like you were saying, like you have to have a good 1-2 punch when you're these smaller schools in the Big Ten at quarterback. It's hard to say as a fan and like what coaches have always said, you want experience there, right? Even though he's a walk-on, I think you kind of just give the reins to Blaze McKibben. Being the elder in that room, right? The vet, if you will.
I think it just depends. I mean, you may see a guy who's more athletic be able to maybe help extend plays. And in those, when you're facing those better teams, it's gonna, moving the pocket is gonna be pretty important. I mean, it also is kind of important to remember this is Indiana. This is not going to be the same expectations as you have for Ohio State and Michigan, Georgia,
Absolutely.
Alabama. So, I mean, Indiana, what, won how many games last year? Just a few, right? Just a few
Or
games last year, 4 games last year. So, anything, it feels like anything above four this year would be a better season and exciting for the team and the city. But I it's who's going to give you the best leadership, but who also gives you the best shot to win. And so, like I said, I think you need to have the one or two guys that are going to do that. I think, personally, I think Taven Jackson, I think his name is going to potentially be someone to look out for. Obviously, was in the SEC last year, transferred in from Tennessee, so he's obviously got athleticism and
Yeah.
can throw the ball. So, I think maybe look for him.
Drew, your thought on that?
yeah, uh, at Indiana, the philosophy is just win six. Or just here to get to a bowl game. I
Just
think,
win six. I like that. I like
yeah,
that for these philosophies.
I think with Williams injured, I think Taven Jackson ends up being the starter. Just he's the highest he's the highest rated, highest ranked of the bunch, and doesn't really have any experience, but neither do any of the other ones.
Yeah, I think in to my I guess in my mind, I think you give the reins to Blaze McKibben as your junior, elder in that quarterback room, just because he is probably the most experienced guy with on-field playing time, I would imagine. Um, and then I would say if one of these one of these guys like Tavion Jackson, Brandon Sorsby, or Brock Lowry just throughout the season maybe or going into like summer camp just wow you with their athleticism, then I think you make one of those the two guy and you still let Blaze start the game to see what he can do, and then you would maybe turn it over to one of those guys and say, hey, get out there and get more playing time, to eventually maybe become the starter by week 3 or maybe by week 4 or 5 if you're Indiana, right? Where you still could say, hey, we've won 3 games, we need 3 more. You give us our best shot to get that done, in the heart of our Big Ten schedule. That's just where I'm at with Indiana, especially in their quarterback room. Um, Drew, with these, like you said, with these just win six teams, it's very hard to find a lot of information on them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just very, very hard.
Yeah, I mean, I just know. I mean, when I was looking it up, the main thing that kind of popped out was that they had 22 transfer come
22
in.
transfers, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the one thing. I mean, they were ranked based on their incoming talent by ESPN in the top 25. I mean, you wouldn't expect Indiana to be a team like that. So, it seems like that they're trying to get more talent because they're obviously not going to win a lot of recruiting battles in Indiana
Mm.
with Notre Dame. And even still, Ohio State and Michigan both take Indiana players too. So
Yes.
it's the transfer portal, I think, is really good for a team like Indiana because you're going to be able to see a lot of guys who highly rated potentially might go somewhere else, but they have a shot to play right away at Indiana opposed to maybe sitting behind someone. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think they could potentially win. Their schedule sets up okay.
Their
They
schedule
just have to
definitely isn't bad. Um,
they just have to be able to not get blown out 21-0 in the first quarter.
truth, truth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Tom Allen has been really active in the transfer portal, and I feel like with the way NIL is going and everything, I feel like the transfer portal is where these just win six teams will live and die by. And I think Tom Allen is kind of realizing that now. Don't you guys?
Yeah, I think Tom Allen realizes that his time is running out. I mean, he's been there for this is his seventh year, and he has won two winning seasons if you count 2020.
Okay.
Um, so like obviously he feels the pressure. Like me on the outside, I can see the pressure, so I can only imagine how he's feeling it.
But what? But so you're speaking about that pressure. What pressure is there though at Indiana? Is it just winning
Just win
seasons?
six. Yeah,
Just to have a winning season or go 500?
it's to it's to get to a bowl game every third year, every other year probably.
Okay.
It's to not be in the gutter. It's to help sell tickets to help people wait for basketball season. You know, this isn't Indiana's not here to win conference titles.
They're here to supplement and get people through till basketball season starts in
They're
November.
here to make some money so that they can take that money and give it to the basketball team and the baseball team.
Corey's smiling like, "Yep, that's exactly what it
I
is."
mean, I mean that's I mean, I look back on it, and when I look back at Indiana, I don't, you don't ever really see them outside of maybe 2, 3 years that I can remember where they were potentially talked about as someone that could win a Big Ten title, Big Ten championship. Like, you can't think of a lot of times where
No,
Indiana is
outside of
is going to
basketball,
be
no.
contending. So, like at these smaller schools, these smaller schools that end up contending when they shouldn't, when you look at them, even in basketball, pretty much in any sport, when you have experience and guys that have played together and stayed together, that's when you typically have a team that's going to be the best. So the transfer portal is good and it's bad. And in this case, for me, I think this could be something that you're bringing in so much new talent. While it could be really good for you and could help you be better, it's also
The
not
culture,
you're taking away part of having 4 year guys,
you're
trying to
not.
keep those guys, that those 2 3 star guys that come in by their fourth year in there, know the system and are there and played with everybody else. And I think that that's kind of an important piece.
Well, you're not wrong. And do you know who does a very good job of that as a lower tier program in the Big Ten? Is Patty Fitz at Northwestern. He has built a culture there where he tells them, "Hey, you stick here for 4 years, we're gonna be good. We're gonna be good at least 2 of those 4 years, right? Because of our
Mhm.
experience and our things." And he does it, and you don't really see Northwestern active that much in the transfer portal because I feel like Patty Fitz has built that culture at Northwestern that Corey was talking about, right? And I just don't think Tom Allen has built that at Indiana. Where
What I
like,
mean, and he could look at Purdue too.
yeah,
Outside of
Purdue.
Purdue, I mean, before their coach left, obviously, but I mean, look at Purdue. No one would have thought that Purdue would have been the team that
Snuck into
would
a
have
Big Ten
played
championship.
in the Big Ten championship
Right.
game. No one would have picked Purdue to be there, and they're a small school, and we're going to talk about them here in a few
A few
minutes. But
minutes.
like,
Right.
it's one of those things where it's like you could take a book from 100 miles away from you. I mean, you.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a lot easier on that side of the Big Ten, sure, but no one expects you to necessarily beat Ohio State or beat Michigan,
Or beat
but
Penn
maybe you
State.
can play close in those games and beat the teams, Northwesterns, the
Beat
Purdue's,
the teams you're supposed to
the
teams.
teams, and that's then you could rattle off 7, 8 wins in a year, and all of a sudden people are talking about Indiana football again.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Let's take a look here at the Indiana schedule. They open up the year against Ohio State at home, and then they
Loss.
have Indiana State, um, Louisville, Akron, at Maryland, at Michigan, home against Rutgers, at Penn State, home against Wisconsin, at Illinois, home against Michigan State, and then they travel to West Lafayette for that rival against Purdue. Um, just a glance over their schedule, guys, I mean, I see 4 guaranteed losses on the schedule: Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and Wisconsin, in my opinion. I see potentially 5, actually probably 5 when you go to Maryland, um, with their high-powered offense that they have there in College Park. I'm really writing a 7-5 record here for them. I think they do get to that 6 wins, or get to that 6 win
That's
mark.
that's pretty generous.
Wow.
I would say they have they're 7 winnable games, absolutely winnable games. I don't know that they win all 7 of those to get 7 wins, but I think there is definitely winnable games. They should beat Akron. They should beat Indiana State. They should beat a couple of those Big Ten teams. They should. That doesn't mean they will. If I mean, easily should have 6 wins. They should have 6 wins, but I don't think they'll get there. I think they'll probably have 4 or 5 again.
So you're going 4 and
I would
8
go.
for
I
'em?
would. I would go 5 and 7.
Okay, so
Five
you're
and seven, and
reversing
that's
it.
generous. And that's generous, especially with not knowing who the quarterback is. But if they figure it out and can play together, there's no reason why they can't win 5 games.
Drew?
Uh, well, I'm wearing the Indiana hat, and I'm gonna bury them here. They have two
Love it.
games that they should win. They paid Indiana State for a win, and Akron is still not good. Jim Moorhead's in his second year at Akron, though, so should be interesting. Ohio State will kill them. Michigan will kill them. Penn State will kill them. Whiskey will kill them. I think Louisville beats them. Louisville's very good. Jeff Brom is the new head coach there. Obviously, Jeff Brom knows how to beat Indiana. And then at Illinois, I can't trust Indiana's offense versus Illinois' defense. And then I got 3 toss-ups. The Rutgers game. Rutgers is just as bad. Both teams are coming off a bye that week. Or no, Rutgers is off bye that week. Michigan State, maybe. It's the second last game of the season. By the end of November, has Michigan State given up? Do they care anymore? Is Mel Tucker there? That could be a
We don't
steal
know.
for Indiana. And then last game of the year, rivalry game at Purdue. I don't think they're going to win this game, but it is a rivalry game. So
And
it
new
is
head
there.
coach at Purdue too. So
And a new head coach at Purdue. Yeah. So my best record is 5-7. I think they're going to go 3-9.
That's what I had you at. As you were talking, I had you at 3 and 9.
Yeah.
We'll get
I don't trust this team.
We'll get Ethan's outlook on Indiana and Purdue when he's back here with us. He's taking a 4th of July holiday weekend. We allowed him. He ran out of time off though, guys. He ran out of time off for the podcast, so he will be back every week. um, yeah, I think that's all pretty good for Indiana. We'll see what happens with them. I'm gonna give them a bright mark here because everybody else is shitting on them a little bit. So I'm gonna give them that 7-5 mark just to give the fans a little hopeful.
Good. Yeah.
well, Tom Allen will buy himself another 10 years if they go 7-5.
Oh God, he'll
For
probably
real.
buy him another 20. Oh, you went 7-5. Great, Tom. Sign this 20-year contract. Let's go to the new reign of the Purdue Boilermakers, guys. Let's start here with their schedule. Purdue opens the season with Fresno State. They go to Virginia Tech for Enter Sandman, one of the greatest entrances in all of college football. They host the Cuse, the Big Orange. Then they host Wisconsin, Illinois. They go to Iowa. They'll get Ohio State at home this year. Then they go to Nebraska, to Michigan, home against home against Minnesota, and then they go to Northwestern, and then they got what we just said. They end the year with Indiana. So that's their schedule. kind of tough. A lot tougher than what I
Phil
think Indiana's is.
Phil Steele has Purdue as the number 5 strongest schedule in America. Number 1 schedule in the Big Ten.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
None of those non-conference
For
games
a
are a
new head
wash.
coach. Welcome to the conference.
Yeah.
Welcome to
Right.
the conference, man. Your guys' thoughts on Purdue?
I think they're going to be solid. I think their new head coach, Ryan Walters, is a defensive guy. Obviously, when you look at Purdue last year, they were not a very good defensive team. Although they still went to the Big Ten championship game, um, their defense to me is going to be the difference this year, and they're going to be good. I don't know that they'll be as good as last year's team, but I think they'll be pretty good.
Yeah.
Schedule wise, I mean, I see 7. They could be 7-5. I think is probably ceiling for me. I'm gonna go 6-6 though for their
Okay.
schedule.
Yeah.
Drew, your little early Purdue season schedule here.
I'm excited to see this Purdue team. I
Yeah.
really like Ryan Walters, the new head coach. He's a great defensive coordinator. Had a lot of success at Missouri before he went to Illinois the past 2 seasons, and obviously Illinois' defense was awesome.
Yeah.
So I have good faith in this guy for the future. This season, I'm a little sketched out because he is a brand new head coach, and I worry about the offense. Graham Harrell is the new OC, which sounds like it could be pretty awesome. Although Graham Harrell hasn't had too much success.
He was a great college player.
Yes, he was. He was a phenomenal quarterback. As a coach, he hasn't had too much success yet. He was at West Virginia. West Virginia was trash. But I think bringing in Hudson Card, the quarterback from Texas, could be pretty fun. I think he's pretty solid. I think they have probably a top 10 running back in the conference, and Devin Mockabee. Brought in some good transfers on offense.
He did.
Like I said, I think the defense is going to be sweet with Walters there.
I'm really excited to see the Texas transfer, Hudson Card.
Yeah.
I think he could add a different dynamic to that Purdue running game that we've seen that they've had previously. I think he can bring that back if Ryan wants to go that RPO
route. Yeah, I doubt it because Graham Harrell's going to want to throw the ball.
Yeah.
I imagine they're going to run the air raid, which should be all right because Hudson Card has a big arm.
Yes.
I just worry about the receiving core. Corey Gamage from Marshall is pretty sweet, and TJ Sheffield returns. But other than that, there's not too many playmakers on this offense.
They do have Devin Mockabee.
Yeah. Like I said, I think he's a top 10 running back in the conference. I think he could start for pretty much every other team. Yeah. So the schedule, they got completely boned by the schedule makers, dude. That's why it's so hard for me to see this team even winning 6. I want to say their ceiling is 6-6, but Fresno State, they should
not
win.
A pusher, but that's not a pushover game.
That's not a pushover. At Virginia Tech has as many transfers as Indiana, so like I really don't know what to make of Virginia Tech yet. But since it's in Blacksburg, I'm gonna lean Virginia Tech.
Dude, and also one thing I think helps Purdue that game is it's not a night game for them.
Oh, is it not?
No, it's a noon kickoff.
Okay. Yeah, that makes things better. And then Syracuse, I think they can beat Syracuse. They're gonna have a pretty awesome offense, but Dino Babers doesn't play defense.
No.
And I think Ryan Walters is gonna out coach Babers in that game. and shut down the Syracuse offense. So I'll give them a win there. I think they get wins over Northwestern and Indiana, and then possibly at Nebraska. So I'm gonna have Purdue at 4-8.
4-8, huh?
Yeah.
So they're going reverse what they did last year. Won't make a bowl game. Definitely not making a trip to Indy with that record. For the Boilermakers, I think that
No,
train
sir.
got got to Indy and never left.
Yeah. Dude, they got to play Ohio State and
Michigan,
Michigan.
yeah.
Bro.
I mean, I'm just looking at it like,
0-2 right there.
I mean, I'm just looking at it right here. In a stretch, they go back to back Wisconsin, Illinois. One thing that does help them is Ryan Walters was Illinois' DC, so he knows that roster a little bit. He knows, that team. So
And
he
they're a
may,
young offense.
and they're a young offense, so he may be able to pick apart a little bit that Illinois team. But I mean, that's still a tough game. Iowa's going to be a tough game against them just because we know what Iowa's defense will always do. Iowa's always biggest question mark is their offense. Now with Cade McNamara, with Cade McNamara there and a couple, some of those transfers they got, that maybe puts them over the edge in Purdue. And then obviously they're probably going to get killed by Ohio State. They're probably going to get killed by Nebraska. They're going to get killed by Michigan. Minnesota could be a coin flip that late in the season. And the only reason I say that is you never know what happens throughout, the season. When you get to the November, injuries could plague your team and stuff like that. So, like, to me, that's a toss-up game. One thing that helps the Boilermakers in November there is that game is home. But then they go to Northwestern, which I think they'll win because Northwestern's bad. And then it's a rivalry game against Indiana. Rivalry, we know anything can happen in those games. But I do have, like Corey said, I have Purdue sitting at 6-6. I think that's their ceiling. I think they may get there, but the way their schedule looks, man, I mean, if things start going south, real south for Purdue, I think it could go really deep south. I'm talking about going to the deep south for them. And it could go fast. Oh, I mean,
it could, but I don't. It could, but I don't think. I think again, defensive mind is going to keep them in a lot of games. And again, they do host a few of those big games. So one of them potentially will be a night game, and if their defense shows up that game, maybe their offense just plays out of their mind. That we've seen Purdue do that before.
Oh, yeah.
Where their offense just goes crazy. Everything they touch turns to gold. And
Absolutely.
If their defense can play somewhat decent and get a few stops, they're in one of those tough games, and the pressure is then taken off of them. Right. So I think they could. You're right. They could go. They could win 2 games.
Right.
It could be really bad. But it just, to me, when I look at Ryan Walters coming in, I don't think Illinois was not there. If Illinois had a decent offense last year, they would have potentially been a Big Ten champ.
I mean, if Illinois if you want to be honest, if Illinois had a decent offense, they probably beat Michigan last year.
Well, yeah.
Am I wrong?
And what, they won 10 games last year? 10?
Yeah. But I mean, Corey, am I wrong in saying that though?
No, not at all.
Wrong?
That's what I'm saying. So, and I mean, and the reason they were in that position and won 10 games last year was because their defense was insane. Now, you don't expect Purdue's defense to be insane in year one, but I mean, switching to a 3-4 from what they're used to and getting more speed out there, which is exactly what Ryan Walters does. He puts playmakers on the field all the time. And I just think their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. And I think that they potentially could win more than 6 games. Their schedule doesn't set up to it. Obviously, for them to get more than 6 wins, they'd have to beat a good team that no one expected them to
Well, I
beat.
mean, they'll have
But
to beat Wisconsin
I
or
mean,
Illinois to get over that hump.
but if their defense is in the top 20 of college football for a Purdue team that doesn't have a lot of talent like Ohio State and Michigan and all of those other teams, potentially they could be. I think they're easily 6 wins, just because of that. Because their defense, they're switching up. Purdue didn't play defense last year. They won games because their quarterback out threw the other guy. That's why they won games last year. It just seems like this year it's going to be defense, defense, defense. And Hudson Card is a stud. He was good. He was good at Texas. I think he lost the job at Texas because of Quinn Ewers coming in, and he just lost his confidence because of that. I mean,
To
like,
be honest,
Hudson Card was the starter, and he played good in the first couple of games.
I think Hudson lost his starting job not because of a confidence issue. I think it was pressure on Texas and their head coach of playing Quinn Ewers. I think it was just pressure on that end. And then now when you add in Archie Manning, I think you have even more pressure to play one of those two. You know, you're either playing Quinn Ewers, the $1 million freshman, or you play the legacy.
Manning's redshirting.
No, he is, but I'm saying though, like, if you're Hudson Carr, right? Like, if you're Hudson, you're looking at that quarterback room and you're like, I'm definitely going to get pushed down the totem pole because the head coach is going to have pressure to either play the $1 million freshman, you know what I mean, and Quinn Ewers, or you play the legacy.
Yeah, and we were talking about it before. Look at Texas's quarterback room. I wouldn't stay there. Like, we haven't mentioned it, but Malik Murphy is going to be a star somewhere. Arch Manning, obviously, and Quinn Ewers still has like 2 or 3 years of eligibility. That's another thing. All these dudes have eligibility at Texas, whereas Purdue has no quarterback.
That is true. That is true.
And he gets to come into the Graham Harrell offense.
And they're getting lucky with the COVID year. Because like Quinn Ewers will get the COVID year back.
Yeah, but if Ewers has a good year,
he's going pro.
He's going pro.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, it's one of those things. For Hudson Card, it was an obvious move, easily move, whatever. I don't, obviously, I would have potentially maybe liked to see him go to a bigger spot because he was kind of a bigger name coming out. I think it was a 4-star out of high school. Like, he was a good quarterback coming out of high school. But again, he's a guy who has a lot of talent. He also has a lot of experience playing college football already. So he brings,
and a big conference.
In a big conference. So he can bring, he brings a little bit something different that Purdue hasn't had in a couple of years, or hasn't had in a while. So to be honest, it's one of those things.
That since Drew Brees.
You have a good running back. You have unknown wide receivers, right? Unknown wide receivers. You've got a few guys who returned, for a total of like 70 catches or something like that, like 70 total receptions. So, but I mean, again, last year they didn't go to anybody but Chuck Sizzle last year. Every time you needed something, they were throwing at Charlie Jones. So they didn't get an opportunity. So to me, you got 3 starters coming back on the offensive line. You got a good quarterback coming in. You have a good running back who Drew said is probably, he's probably a top 5 potential running back in the conference just based on what he's done previously. And, if the defense can give up less than 25 points and the offense is average, they're going to win games.
Yeah, and another point, I think West Lafayette is a little underrated of a place to play. Like,
it's tough.
Like, people go to Ohio State, goes to Purdue and loses. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska, Michigan. These teams lose in West Laf. So I think
especially at night.
Yeah, especially at night. I think Purdue's home field should be taken into account.
You're not wrong. It's a very it's a very underrated, tough place to play in our conference. You know,
Mhm.
when you really think, I mean, to your point, when you think of the toughest places to play, at the top of the list in no particular order is the Shoe, the Big House, Happy Valley, and Camp Randall. I would say are the top four in no particular order, right?
Yeah.
Those are your four toughest venues you got to travel to in the Big Ten. And then that fifth, that fifth, I looking at it, I mean, I don't consider going to East Lansing that tough um, of an environment. I wouldn't consider
Hmm.
going to Lincoln, Nebraska a tough environment to play in. I wouldn't consider going to College Park, Maryland a tough environment. I wouldn't consider going to Minnesota a tough environment. But I would say going to Purdue, going to West Lafayette, night like that prime time 8 o'clock kickoff or that 3:30 kickoff for a lot of teams are trap times and trap games.
Well, and in those games where Purdue upsets the bigger team, their defense plays well.
Truth.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, their offense has gone crazy, and if you score 45 points against Ohio State or Michigan, you're going to have a shot to win the game.
Right.
But it's one of those things where it's not about that. When they beat Ohio State, they beat them what 28-21. They beat them in a closer low scoring game where the defense has
Right.
shown up, and everybody knows when your defense plays well, the crowd will go crazy. So, and that's going to keep the crowd into it.
Absolutely, but I do think, like Drew was saying though, the home field advantage that Purdue has is up there with the upper teams of the Big Ten. Like, I mean,
Maybe like tier two, maybe.
yeah, like the tier two atmosphere, like a tier two atmosphere, because like, I mean, I could say back in the day, going to Champaign was a hell of a time. I wouldn't consider going to Northwestern, a stadium, Corey, that you and I and Drew, we all know. You could look into it from the street.
Yeah, I love Ryan Field.
Ryan
Not
Field,
intimidating atmosphere though.
but not intimidating. I wouldn't consider Bloomington intimidating atmosphere at
No.
all. Um, Definitely not Rutgers, not East Rutherford. I wouldn't consider that.
No, they're definitely tier two, probably
Yeah,
with like Iowa.
yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking
I
Iowa.
was gonna say Iowa would be the only other team that I could put into that category.
I think
Just
I think eventually Nebraska will move up if and when they start getting good.
if.
I think
Because
they're gonna. I think they're
I'm
gonna be good,
because
but
that
they
was
don't
an
have. But
yeah,
they
that
don't
was an
have to be
atmosphere
good.
20 years ago.
Yeah, they don't have to. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Everyone is putting such high expectations on Nebraska. They don't have to be great.
yeah.
I mean, to win that side of the Big Ten, you have to what 8 wins?
I think the
Bo
last
Bo Pelini was at Nebraska for like 20 years and only winning 8 games and selling out the stadium all the time. So like just win 8 at Nebraska.
um yeah, Corey, I think you're right though, because outside of Wisconsin on the west side of the division, I don't think you've had a 10-win team play in Indy. Because
Iowa
I don't think
once. I think Iowa once.
I mean I was since the divisions realigned after the 2013 season.
Didn't Iowa go like 10-2? Iowa went. I think Iowa went like 10-2 like 3 years ago.
No, because
21, Iowa went 10-4. Lost to Michigan in the Big Ten title game.
okay, so that would have
Yeah,
been 2021, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the only
Yeah,
year I can think of.
because outside of that, Purdue went 8-4. Northwestern was probably 8-4 in both of their years that they went. Um, and then you have Wisconsin.
I mean, Wisconsin maybe did it a couple of times.
No,
Wisconsin
Wisconsin
might have
I
won
know
10 games,
definitely did because
but yeah. But
because
Wisconsin, but Wisconsin, when you look at Wisconsin this year, Wisconsin's got to start all over. You're going
Oh,
to bring in a bunch
1000%.
of guys and everything. And so, although Purdue is kind of starting all over, they're almost not, because they went to the Big Ten championship game last year. It almost puts another confidence in you and energizes everything. So it's
I would say Purdue would have a more likely shot if State Brom was coming back, but I
Mhm.
don't I don't think Walters in his first year. It's always a big change, right? And we've seen it at Ohio State, and you see it affect the upper echelon programs when they go through a scheme change on either side of the ball. It affects them for a couple years getting those players into that scheme and working that scheme to perfection, right? So I think that's where, like, you're not wrong, Corey. Purdue's not starting over, but in a way they are. Because Walters is implementing his scheme on defense that he knows works, right? That's going to take those players time to get used to. I mean, I don't care how talented you are, because Ohio State and Michigan have probably the most talented rosters in all of college football this upcoming year, next to Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State's still struggling on defense. And this was going into year two of a new scheme change, right, on their
no,
defense.
I mean, I
So
get it. I understand it, but Purdue didn't play a lot of defense last year. So
no,
even if Purdue plays a little bit of defense this year and it's better, they're going to win a few more games than they did last year. Although Purdue won a lot of games last year that they didn't have any business winning. So it's one of
and
those
were
things where
those
it's like a
games because
wild
of the
card.
coach? And was
It's
that
like
game because of Brom? Yeah,
I think I mean, they had a good offense. Purdue had a good offense last year.
they
And
did.
again, that was Aiden O'Connell. What was he there? 5 years. That was his fifth year in the
Truth.
system. You
Truth.
have those long-term guys that propel you. Now, obviously, we wouldn't be talking about Purdue being in the Big Ten championship game at 8-4 if they were on the other side. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's just luck of the draw. That's where
So
they're at. 8 wins got it done.
who do you think
We've seen
is
it.
who do you
Go
think
ahead.
is most likely to come out of the West this year?
Someone who's going to lose to either Michigan or Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. But probably if I had to give it, if I mean, I put myself in the most person I have the most faith in, and the most faith I have is probably Fickle. So I would say Wisconsin, but Wisconsin's probably going to be 8-4.
Right.
So I mean,
Yeah.
like what I mean, Wisconsin has probably the highest ceiling and could potentially win 10 games. But I think at 8-4, they win that side of the conference.
Yeah.
I think it's a 3-team race, more so just a 2-team. My third team is Minnesota. I just can't trust
Yeah.
Minnesota, but they are good. They are very good.
Yes, they are.
Row the boat.
I'm all about it. But I think it's Wisconsin versus Iowa. Um,
That's what I was gonna say.
Iowa's still legit. If they can turn their offense around and just score like 24 points a game, then they'll win at least 8 games. Wisconsin's just a giant question mark. They've got so much talent. They have probably the best running back in the conference. Um, and their schedule's pretty easy. So I can understand the Wisconsin pick.
I mean, Iowa should be good. That's not saying anything, but Iowa's schedule doesn't set up good.
No, it
And
doesn't.
you have and we talk about transfers and everything like that. So it's one of those things where it's like, is Iowa going to go play? They're going to play well at home. We know that. They always do. But when they go on the road, are they going to play well? Cade McNamara is a dude, okay? He's a stud. But your offensive coordinator is terrible.
I mean,
He's the coach's son.
you're
Coach's son.
not
You know
wrong.
what he? I mean,
But I'm
I
looking at
just
Iowa's schedule.
It's not that bad.
It's very favorable for them. They
yeah.
avoid they avoid
Th-
Ohio State and Michigan this year. Their only tough game will be against when they have to go to Happy Valley
At Penn and at Wisconsin.
and travel to Camp Randall. Yeah.
I think they go 4-0 in November, beat Northwestern, beat Rutgers, beat Illinois, and beat Nebraska.
Yeah.
I don't think Nebraska is going to be good.
No.
I'm off on Nebraska. Plus, their non-conference is not good. Utah State's bad. Western Michigan's probably one of the worst teams in the country. And
Iowa State is their rival game, and they play
rivalry
that early.
game. That's always tough to call. It's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
Matt Campbell's great coach over at Iowa State.
Oh, 1000%. I'm just I was just like looking at Iowa's schedule, and it's just like, man, they get. I mean,
They get Michigan State from the East.
They could be 9-3. I mean,
it's doable.
Literally, they could be 9-3 this year.
It's just that giant question mark on offense.
Well, and the thing is, you know, the other thing is we've seen what McNamara did, right? We saw what he did at Michigan, but let's not forget he had a whole stable of talent around him at Michigan that he's not going to have at Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. You're going to have players, and that's not a diss on anything against Iowa, but the offensive line at Iowa is not the same as the offensive line at Michigan.
No.
The defensive line at Iowa, the defense for Iowa, you can count on to be good. You know the defense will be solid. They always play good defense. Right. But the thing is it's not just, oh, these guys come in, they make them so much better. Yeah, they're more skilled players than they've had. But you still have to run the offense the way it's supposed to go. And if your running back runs into the middle and gets 2 yards and you're in 3rd and 8, that's not good for Cade McNamara. Cade McNamara was good when it was 3rd and 5. 3rd and 5 and less.
Yes.
So I look at Wisconsin. They have a ton of talent. They have a great running back who they're going to feed the ball, just like Wisconsin always does. And Wisconsin, if they can get, again, if their quarterback play is no turnovers or turnover once a game, they're going to win probably 10 games, regardless 100%. Of who's on their schedule. That's just the way Wisconsin football is.
And I think the one thing that helps Wisconsin football this year, even with all their question marks that they have, because they just lost a linebacker for the season. He just got injured during camps or whatever. So I think when you look at like the strength for Wisconsin, like Corey was saying, running the football, but I really think it's Luke Fickell and his knowledge of coaching in the Big Ten for a long time, right? I mean, he was there under like the Jim Tressel era at Ohio State. He was then transferred over to the Urban Meyer era, won a national championship. So he knows what it's like to recruit at that high level of the Big Ten. He knows what it's like to win at a high level of the Big Ten, and he knows what it takes to win at a high level in the Big Ten.
When he won at a high level at Cincinnati too.
Well,
I mean,
yes.
He beat teams they should have won. They should have beaten absolutely, but they also played Indiana, Purdue, teams that when you think about playing Cincinnati, oh, the Big Ten always is going to beat them, and he beat those teams too. So yeah. I mean, he's going to prepare. He's going to prepare that team.
What I was saying though is when you right. And he has the head coaching experience that he does, in the head coaching at doing a head coaching at an elite level at Cincinnati. And I think when you combine all those things, I think those question marks that Wisconsin has gets a little bit erased because of the coach and the philosophies that Luke Fickell implements within his programs.
Woody has a ton of talent. He's probably one of the most talented teams in the country.
Yeah, they have a ton of talent.
He's probably the best set up first-year head coach this year. I don't know for sure, but I would say he's probably one of the best set up.
He definitely walked into a better situation than Matt Rule did.
Yeah.
In Nebraska.
Well, and that's another thing.
And
it's
Ryan
one
Walters.
Of those. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like if Wisconsin can play defense again, Look
Watch
out.
out.
They're going to be really good.
Yeah, also their schedule is pretty trash. They draw Ohio State from the East, but then they get Rutgers and Indiana. So those are two dubs. And their non-conference is not good. Buffalo, who's not good. Georgia Southern, who's not good. And at Washington State,
And their
who's
side of the conference is not good.
yeah.
No.
So the schedule sets up real nice.
Wisconsin could be 11-1.
I'm looking at my Phil Steele right now, and Phil Steele says Wisconsin is his number one surprise team. He has Wisconsin at 11-1.
With that one loss probably being to Ohio State.
I would assume. He doesn't say, but yeah, probably.
I would assume.
No, they're going to lose to Purdue.
Yeah, right. Dang, Phil is on it. Phil is on it. Our boy Phil. But getting back to Purdue here a little bit, just getting back to Purdue. Oh, yeah. I think if Walters can get them bought in to his philosophy and his scheme from spring ball that we saw all the way through summer camps and into fall camps, right? And, start the season off strong, they could make some noise in that West Division. Now, how much noise are they creating? I don't know. But I feel like if he could get their team bought in to what he wants to do from that Braum era, Purdue could be a team to watch out for.
Yeah, I'm looking at their recruiting right now for next year, and Purdue's sitting real pretty right now in recruiting. They're 7th in the conference. They have more 4-stars than Wisconsin, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa. So
yeah.
Walters is already putting in work. I think Purdue in the future could be a real problem.
I definitely think so too. And that's what I was saying. Like, they're sitting right now 7th in the Big Ten. They got 17 commits. I mean, obviously, when you look at their points that they get per commit, I mean, they're sitting well behind the upper echelon of the Big Ten, especially when you add USC in there, right?
Their average is pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, their
88.1.
Yeah, they're 88.1, which is really good. I mean, you have a higher average than Minnesota and Nebraska for your average recruiting rating, which is really good going into next year. So I think Waters is hit the recruiting trail really hard to make his first class the best he could possibly make it for Purdue. And I think another thing that could help Purdue is being selective in who you bring in through the transfer portal. Right? Because like as we were talking earlier and Corey mentioned it, when these teams are their most dangerous is when they are stacked with their juniors and seniors who have been there for 2 to 3 years, right? So I think if he is selective in bringing in, maybe, oh, hey, we have one really good corner, right? But guys, hey, if we bring in this guy, he's our second best, he could be that second best corner who could help us get to Indy, right? Or, hey, we have 2 really good wide receivers. If we bring in this third guy, he could help us get to Indy. So I think if he could build that type of a culture where it's your recruits understand when they're being recruited that they're going to be here and you're not going to look to replace them in the transfer portal after a year or two, I think that could really, really help Walters and his tenure here that's just starting at Purdue.
I also think the no divisions is going to help him a lot too. Because not having divisions is not going to be, we have to play this set of teams every year. Not having to play those easier teams and probably going to get a tougher schedule is going to basically set them up to be in a good spot. So I think not having divisions is going to help him recruiting too. He's already a heck of a recruiter. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Drew, what do you think about that with the no divisions? Do you think the no divisions are going to help these must-win 6 teams?
Um, yeah, 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 I think so. I think, well, the divisions are so uneven that getting rid of them helps pretty much everyone.
I think it helps the
Um,
conference as a whole.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, especially helps Indiana, Rutgers, Maryland, right? Um, yeah, I'm looking at Purdue's schedule for next year right now, and it's, I don't know, dude, it's kind of tough. At Illinois, at Indiana, which could be a win, at Maryland, which could be a win, at Sparty, I don't know, Nebraska, I don't know, Northwestern, maybe. But then they draw Penn State, USC, and Wisconsin. That's
Ooh.
brutal. Um, but yeah, I think no divisions is a good thing.
I mean, you're still going to have those teams that are not good, right? You're still
Yeah,
going to
oh,
have those teams
absolutely.
that are not there, but it helps them knowing that going into it, they don't have to necessarily play Michigan, Ohio State, USC every single year.
Yes.
So it could be,
Yeah.
yeah, they're going to have at when you are recruiting, it could be, oh, we're not going to be as good your first year, but that second year when we have a better schedule, you're going to be on the field and we're going to be doing some good.
Yeah.
So it definitely can help.
Um, Honestly, I think the best thing that the Big Ten did when they added USC and UCLA was saying we're not having divisions anymore. Um, just because I mean, like Corey and I've talked about it plenty of times. Drew, I know you and I've talked about it on occasions as well. Is your 3 best teams in your conference are all in one division. The Big Ten really did themselves a disservice with not saying the best 2 teams are going to go to the conference championship.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I mean,
And
I
yeah,
told you, Michigan and Ohio State should have been on separate divisions.
yeah.
they should have been on. They
I've
should have
been,
remained on separate sides.
yeah. And like going back 10 years ago, like the East, we also have Michigan State. Like Michigan State was a legit program in the 2010s.
Yeah,
Um, so that's 4 teams in the East that are legit programs, whereas the West had Wisconsin,
One,
maybe Iowa here and there, but that's it.
right?
I mean, for how many years did we go to the Big Ten championship game, Drew? And we saw Ohio State versus Wisconsin. What, three
It
years in a
was
row?
it was a running joke.
Yeah,
It was, oh, we're going to see the same game. Saw this game last year. Eventually, it was like, I don't even know if I want to go to this game anymore.
I think what was it, the second year we all went up with our group with your brother, Ethan, and everybody. We were all just like, well, where do you guys want to go next year? Big 12,
ACC,
SEC,
yeah,
ACC? Like, we know this is probably going to be the matchup again next year. So, um,
yeah,
but I mean, you're not like, and that was just the past. I mean, and now the parity in the Big Ten is getting even a lot worse than it was. I mean, now you just have literally 2 teams that are vying for that conference championship until you add in my opinion, until you add USC in there.
yeah. Well, I would add Penn State myself, and
In Wisconsin.
yeah, Wisconsin will be there. Maybe not, maybe this year, but I think the future for Wisconsin looks very, very, very bright.
You're not wrong, but at this point,
Well, that depends.
I don't
That
see
Today,
depends what happens.
yeah, I don't
yeah,
see. But I guess my thing is I don't see Wisconsin beating Ohio State or Michigan in the near future.
I don't know
I
about that.
can,
Wisconsin
I
used to beat
can.
Michigan and Ohio State once. They used to do it every other year. It used to happen every other year because Wisconsin. You have to remember, Wisconsin was in the top 10 a year
Oh, I
after
know.
year,
Oh,
every
I
single
know.
year. But I mean, like, it's one of those things where
But I just don't see it happening like it used to. Like with the way Ohio State and
I
Michigan are right now, I just don't see either of those two teams giving up the conference championship crown.
I mean, I could
Like
see Penn State. I don't believe in Penn State as much as most people do. I could see
that's
Penn
my thing.
State doing it. I just don't believe in James Franklin.
And that's the thing is
I
That's
don't think
fair.
James Franklin is that guy. But to be fair, I
he's
didn't
not
think
that
Luke
guy.
Fickle was. I don't think Luke Fickle is the guy at Wisconsin. I First of all, I don't see Luke Fickle being at Wisconsin more than 3 years tops. Because
Truth.
I mean,
Truth.
let's be fair here, Nick. You hear all about it
Well,
all the
let's just
time.
be honest. If Ryan
Ohio State
Day,
loses
if
to Michigan, Ryan Day is gone.
I don't think he's gone, but like I think whenever Ohio State's ready to move on from Ryan Day, and if that
It's Luke
happens within
Fickle.
the next 3 to 4 years, it's Luke Fickle. He's the only one you call.
I personally think Ryan Day might go back to the NFL. I
He
think he
may.
might go back to the NFL at some point. I don't know that it'll be right away, but I think at
He
some
may.
point. But it's Luke Fickle will definitely go back to Ohio State.
Oh, you'll
In my
definitely
opinion, I
see
think
Luke Fickle back on the sidelines for Ohio State and the Scarlet and Gray at some point in the near future. And I'm saying probably within the next 5 years. Drew's like, wow. I'm telling you, man,
Hey, I look forward to that NFL team that has Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day on the sideline. Those two working together.
I mean,
Hope it's not the Browns.
well,
the
but like,
Browns seem to be the only team that would take a shot like that, though. Oh
oh
no,
yeah,
maybe the Raiders.
the Raiders would.
The Raiders are weird like that.
But like,
Yeah,
but
and
like what I was
McDaniels
saying,
will be unemployed in a year or two.
what I was saying though
Well,
is
yeah,
just
they're going to
like,
be terrible.
I just don't
He's a
see.
terrible coach.
Oh
He's a
yeah,
fucking joke, dude. Josh
He's a
he's
McDaniels is a
genius
joke.
offensive coordinator, but he's a terrible head coach.
should have stayed. Some people are better off as coordinators than they are as head coaches. Let's just be honest.
I
Yeah.
think personally, you might disagree, but I think Vrabel's a better coordinator than a head coach.
I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And I mean, like,
I mean,
and if you want to be
He's had
honest,
so much talent. I mean, they've had the most talent in the AFC for so long, and they did nothing.
yeah, but what hindered them the most was the franchises, Tennessee's front office not willing to go out and spend money for a top tier quarterback. Dude, could you imagine? Could you imagine if they would have signed Aaron, if they could have, and I'm not saying he would have left, but I'm just saying, like, could you imagine if they could have gotten like an Aaron Rodgers type of caliber of a QB, and he would have
They
been
were the
throwing
number one seed in the AFC, and Patrick Mahomes was the starting quarterback for the Chiefs. Just think about that for a second.
You're not
They
wrong.
were the number one seed. They had A.J. Brown. They had Derrick Henry.
Derrick
They
Henry
had
was
studs.
rushing for over 200 yards a game for them to do that. But that's what I'm saying. If they don't have Ryan Tannehill, throwing the ball, they probably win the Super Bowl that year.
I mean, I don't think Tannehill was the problem that year. But, I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't think I think Ryan Day is an offensive genius, right? An offensive genius. Just because you're an offensive genius doesn't mean you're a head coach.
No.
I think if Ryan Day was an offensive coordinator somewhere, they would be unbelievable. Whoever the team is would be unbelievable. But when Ryan Day has to learn how to coach the defense is when Ohio State struggled. And to me, that's where that's literally the biggest question mark. If Ohio State would be a national title favorite every single year, if they could say that their defense would be a top 5. And you just don't know if you're going to get
Dog, if Jeff Hafley never left for Boston College, you're absolutely correct. Like, if you want to know my opinion, because he was a true head coach of a defense.
Yeah.
I don't think you needed any. Like, Jeff Hafley and that guy, you want to talk about a guy who was a better coordinator than a head coach? Jeff Hafley.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be honest here.
Might be unemployed in a couple months.
Dog, and you know what? if he is, and I'll be the first one to say this right now on this show, if Jeff Hafley becomes unemployed and I'm Ryan Day, the second I hear that news, my phone is already dialing Jeff Hafley. And I'm saying
He won't though.
He won't.
He paid too much money to get the boy from the Big 12 who can't stop anybody.
Well, right. But what I'm saying though, Jim Knowles, see you later. Hafley, you're coming home. You're coming back. Just it's already done.
Well, that's the thing. That's what too many people become head coaches that should just stay coordinators.
Mm-hmm.
Too many people. I mean,
Brent Venables.
I mean, look who's coaching Texas.
Yeah, Sark's a good example.
Sark is an offense. I mean, you could go. I mean, there's a bunch. I mean, and just because they're a good coordinator doesn't mean they're going to be a good head coach. You know, I mean, it's
true.
Nothing. And again, nothing against Ryan Day in anything, right? Because he's a good head coach. He's a good head coach, 100%. But I think to me,
I mean, what he's lost.
I think he's gonna end up going. He's gonna end up going pro again, just because I think the money is right.
I think eventually, and this is just from his words himself, just like Harbaugh's words, it has to be a perfect fit. And Ryan said previously he's not looking at going anywhere until his kids are out of school.
100%. But Ryan Day is also not a legacy guy like you have at most schools like that. It's harder. It'll be a lot easier for him to leave to go than it would be for someone else. Because he didn't play at Ohio State.
No.
Someone who played at Ohio State or played at right.
It's not even that. It's when you even like if you're from the state, like you were born and raised in the state, like Urban Meyer was, or like Lloyd Carr. You know what I mean? Like you have those allegiances.
It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why everyone wants to say, oh, Nebraska will be good because of Matt Rule. Well, Matt Rule was good. He took he took talent that he didn't have and turned it into talent. So, I mean, if he can do that at Nebraska, Nebraska will be good. That doesn't mean Nebraska is going to be unbelievable, but Nebraska was never really unbelievable outside of a 4-year period. They were good. They were never great outside of a 4-year period, in my opinion.
Which period?
They won the national title in '97.
Yeah, the '90s were.
The '90s they were.
Husker.
Yeah, the '90s were really good.
But they were also.
I thought you were meaning
they were also
more of
running
a
in a
recent time period.
No, I mean they haven't been good. No, Tim Crouch.
Yeah, Big Ten Nebraska is not the same Nebraska.
Yeah.
No.
But people are expecting them to be good because Matt Rule is a good head coach. Matt Rule, to be fair, I don't think Matt Rule should have been fired in Carolina. I don't think.
Yeah.
To be honest,
coaching in the NFL is almost impossible. Coaching, because you can go look. A perfect example is the Rams. You went from being Super Bowl champs to not being good, and they were talking about him retiring.
Or being
he was
fired.
Talking about retire, or being fired.
Mm-hmm.
Like you literally won the Super Bowl the year before, and now you won. And it wasn't like they were terrible. They won 8 games? I think they were 8-8, and they were talking about him losing his job. Coaching in the NFL is impossible. It's literally impossible unless you can legitimately find an organization that's
like
going to be okay with
Cincinnati.
or New England.
Yeah.
Where winning, being average was good. I mean, that's what Marvin Lewis did to Cincinnati. He made Cincinnati 8-8, and we were happy with 8-8 because we were sick of being 2-15.
I agree. That's what the Browns are. So that's what we were sick of up in Cleveland.
I mean, but it's just one of those things. Being a head coach in the NFL is so hard, and being a coordinator, even if you don't do your job, it still falls on the head coach. Yes. So I mean, look at the Falcons. The Falcons are up 24-3. That's completely on the offensive coordinator. 100% on. I mean, you can't even put it on the defensive coordinator. You threw the ball. You literally drop back to pass on first down. You were up 24-3. Run the ball 2 times and drop back to pass on third down. You threw the ball on first down, and he got sacked and fumbled, and New England recovered.
Right.
But that's the offensive coordinator's fault, but he never got the blame.
No. And I think, and you're not wrong, Core. I think, and that was going to lead me to this question. I mean, if you are a college football head coach, like, even though Ryan Day doesn't have those allegiances to Ohio State as, other coaches do to universities, and you see the way NFL teams cycle through head coaches if you're not at the right organization, does that really kind of make you not want to go to the NFL and be a head coach, knowing that you don't have that type of job security that you do in college? We're like, Ryan, like,
I think it
let's
depends
just
on
be
the
honest,
school.
though.
It depends where you're at, because
You're
you
not
still have
wrong.
a hot seat in college too. I mean,
You're not
let's
wrong.
let's be honest. Like, for instance, let's take Ryan Day. Ryan Day could leave to go to the NFL to be an offensive coordinator tomorrow, and he
Right.
would be perfect wherever
He'd be a great
was.
fit.
He won, right. But it's also just because I don't know that he would be a great head coach in the NFL.
No.
I don't know that he would be a great head coach. To be honest, I don't even think Jim Harbaugh was that good of a coach in the NFL. It was the simple fact that he took players that nobody thought were good and turned them in. He worked with them to turn them into good, but their defense was insane. Let's not forget that. Their defense was
They
insane.
had Richard Sherman.
Their defense was insane.
Yeah.
Patrick Willis,
Navarro Bowman.
Yeah.
I mean, their corners were good. Their safeties were good. Their line was good.
Well, and
their offense wasn't even.
They had one thing that a hardball offense thrives on: Alex Smith, game manager who doesn't turn the ball over.
That's it. Literally, if you don't turn the ball over in Harbaugh's offense, you will score 40 a game.
As long as you got the beef on the offensive line.
Yeah.
It's always how it's been. And
But
finally, we have that.
Well,
finally.
Right. But, like, I mean, to your point, though, Core, like, I don't think, like, even Harbaugh, like, he's flirted going back to the NFL. I mean, there's probably reasons why he hasn't gone. We'll probably never know those exact reasons. But, like, you got to imagine that it wasn't the perfect fit, if you will.
I think, to be honest, if I had to say what the reason is I think it's his character. I think it's the way he goes about things, the way he wants to be controlled, the way he wants to control the way things go. He has to be in control of how they go. He wants to do things his way, doesn't want to go any other way. And that's, unfortunately, that's not the way the NFL works. The NFL,
in
you
certain
can run
franchises,
things,
correct.
But even still, you can run things your way, the way you want it done. But if the ownership of that franchise wants things done differently, it's going to go the ownership's way. Perfect example, the Dallas Cowboys.
You're exactly. Yeah. That's a good example of that. And I'm going to flip it to the other side, where the other, like, on the other side of that, a good example of a franchise that doesn't do that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. As much as I hate them, and New England, the Kraft and Rooney family let their front office and their head coach really do what he needs to do.
Well, they also have a different process of going through things, because they've also been like, for
they've
instance,
also owned NFL teams for decades.
Well, when you look at it, what'll be really interesting to see is when Tomlin leaves Pittsburgh, you know the exact type of guy who's going to take over. You don't know who it will be, but you know the type of guy, the type of system is going to be run. You know what's going to go in Pittsburgh.
Well,
what'll be interesting to see is when
Belichick. I could see Harbaugh taking over that Pittsburgh job.
No way. They won't allow him to run the team like that. They won't allow him to run the team the way he wants. The reason he was flirting to go back, look at the teams that he was going to go back to. Minnesota, all they want to do is win. They've been so close so many times. All they want to do is win. Okay, well, Jim Harbaugh wins. We'll be interested in him. Vegas, Vegas doesn't know what the hell they're doing. Vegas doesn't know what the hell they're doing. They will do anything to make them good. That's why they were looking at Harbaugh. It's almost like it was one of those things to me before Harbaugh, before you hired Rich Rodriguez, Michigan swung. They swung
missed.
big. They went less miles. They got him. They got him. He signed the contract and then he ripped it up. I mean, what are you going to do? You gave him everything he wanted, and then he said, "No, I'm going back to LSU." What are you going to do? You can't you can't literally handcuff him and force him to come to Ann Arbor. It's one of those things. Jim Harbaugh comes with a lot of scrutiny, comes with a lot of shit. If you watch a Michigan football game, the refs hate him. They hate him. Anytime they can call a penalty on him, sideline warning, anything like that, they're going to do it. They don't like him. It's just the way he is. He brings all of that with him when he goes there.
Well, but I think, and Drew, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if Harbaugh was going to leave, I think there was a couple spots that he could have landed in, but I think the most appealing before his retirement would have been Indianapolis to coach with Andrew Luck.
Yeah. Yeah, if he would have had Andrew Luck, I think he would have went there.
I think he would have really enjoyed playing with Andrew Luck, and then
he also played at Indianapolis too.
Yeah, and he's in the Hall.
So
of,
I mean,
the Ring of Honor.
Right. It's one of those in those situations, again, when Indianapolis was looking at him, it was one of those things. What can we do to energize the city, to get people in the seats, to make sure that we can try to be good? Because they wanted to be good. And that's just what it is. And a perfect example of the other direction is Nick Saban. Nick Saban is the best coach in college football, potentially the best coach in college football history.
And he was a absolute shitty NFL coach.
But was he? He was put in a situation and he wasn't able to run things the way that he wanted to, and they were bad.
I think if Harbaugh were to go to the NFL, he would want a Bill Belichick deal where he is the GM as well. Because like Corey, like you said, he wants to control things. And as the head coach of Michigan, he gets to control everything. So if he goes to the NFL, he's going to want to dabble in the GM role.
So do you think, speaking of that, if he wants that Belichick, the only there's two franchises that really would give that to a head coach. One would be Pittsburgh and the other is New England. Do you think he leaves? Do you think he could leave?
I think Vegas would give it to him too.
I don't think Pittsburgh would give it to him. Pittsburgh is a really good GM right now.
No, the way Pittsburgh runs their system, the way they do it, they know who the next guy is. They've had him scouted for a long time. Mike Tomlin was not the guy that everyone thought Pittsburgh was going to go and hire. Nobody thought it was going to be Mike Tomlin, but they knew it was going to be Mike Tomlin. I'm sure they already know who the next guy is, and he's just waiting in the range for him to take over. He's in the system already.
He's in the building somewhere.
Yeah, he's in the building somewhere.
So then
it's probably going to end up being like Joey.
So would you say then New England would be his most likely landing spot to go back to the NFL?
I think it depends.
I think Kraft would see Harbaugh as a way to get TV, as a money draw. It's Harbaugh. He holds a certain amount of popularity or whatever.
Yeah, stature. He's got.
Kraft is looking for a popular guy. He doesn't. The X's and O's matter less, I think, in New England than popularity.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. But I could see Kraft just calling Harbaugh after Belichick retires. Hey, do you want to come coach back in the NFL? I'll have you here in New England till you're ready to retire. You know how we run things. You can have full control like Bill Belichick did, and we'll see how many Super Bowls we can win here.
Yeah,
because
it's a landing spot for sure.
Because is Harbaugh a Boston guy? I know he's from Ohio, isn't he? So he lives across
He lives across the street from his parents.
Yeah. I mean, he's a Midwestern guy, but
Nice.
like, he's built
That's funny.
Midwestern tough.
He literally bought the house across the street from his parents.
Yeah.
So like he's that guy.
Okay.
So I mean, it's
So
one of
the
those things
alien.
where it's, as I said, he comes with his own baggage, right? He's got his own set of rules, his own set of things, and sometimes in San Francisco, they were willing to give him the keys and let him do things his way. Now, what did that show you? He turned Alex Smith. Yeah. He also turned Colin Kaepernick into a gem. Nobody thought Colin Kaepernick would be a gem, and Harbaugh turned him into. Because why? Because they bought into his system. They bought into his bogusness and all of his crap, and that's what happened, and he did it. And that's just what it is. That's why when he goes and everyone makes fun of him for not having a quarterback and stuff like that, because when he first started, when you first start, it's not easy to get a guy that can be that guy, right? That can be that guy to necessarily run that type of thing. Everyone has their own special person that they want to run how they see it.
And two, I think when you're talking about the quarterback position, and we've seen it so many times in our lifetime, you could be the number one high school recruit in the country at quarterback, and you could just not pan out. You know what I mean? It could just be like you just looked really good in high school because of the competition you were playing. You know what I mean? And put up unreal stats because you were just that more athletically gifted than everybody else around you. I mean, we've seen that at senior high. Like, TJ Lindsey was more athletically gifted than anybody within our area. But was he good enough to go play at a Big Ten basketball? No.
Yeah, to win in high school in most locations, all you need is athleticism. Like that's all it takes at most locations.
And I think when you're looking at that, like Corey, to your point though, like Harbaugh recruited the guys he thought could be that guy, like Wilton Spate, John O'Korn, brought those guys in, and they just didn't pan out. And there's nothing really wrong with that because it happens, right? It just happens.
I mean, it's just part of college football. Not every guy you bring in is going to be great. Everyone has high expectations for everything. In a perfect, I like to say, for a Michigan fan, I use Denard Robinson as a perfect example. That's a guy who came in, was a perfect fit for Rich Rodriguez offense. Instead of transferring and sitting out a year, said, I'm going to stick it out here and I'm going to stick it out with the next guy and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not every person is going to be a perfect fit. I mean, you see guys who are quarterbacks switch to running backs or wide receivers in the NFL.
Pryor.
Like, it's because athleticism is what got them an NFL contract, not because they're good at football. Their athleticism got them that contract. So it's one of those things where for anyone, it's going to have to be a perfect fit. I would never think of Ryan Day of leaving Columbus unless there was something that was so perfect for him to go there. That's why he went there.
Yep, absolutely. And I feel the same
thing with Jim Harbaugh. Same thing. Yeah, same thing. It has to be perfect fit for Harbaugh to be able to leave to go somewhere where he's going to be able to have exactly what he has in Ann Arbor.
Truth.
He's God. In Ann Arbor, he's God. He's literally God. He walks around without his shirt off and people still take pictures of him. He's 50-something years old. I mean, there's not a lot of people. It was like Ed Orgeron when he was at LSU. After they won the national title, he could do nothing wrong. He literally would go on TV, say nothing but "Go Tigers," and people loved him.
I mean, it's just Nick Saban down in Tuscaloosa. That dude.
Right. You can't. 100%. And they leave legacies wherever they go. And it's just unfortunate. Sometimes it doesn't work out and sometimes it does. No one knew that Ryan Day was going to work out after Urban Meyer left.
No. But I mean,
so it's just a matter of.
Could you imagine being a state trooper and you see this random guy swerving on a highway in Tuscaloosa and you pull him over and it's Nick Saban? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do? Damn well down in Tuscaloosa, nobody's going to report that. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
why he
Like,
drives. That's why Nick Saban rides around in a golf cart.
yeah, he just doesn't get like,
Smart.
dude. And I feel like there's only been like,
Because if you're gonna put, he can wave to you as he's going by you.
I feel like in Ohio State's history, there's been 3 coaches that I could legitimately say within the city of Columbus, they could do no wrong. Like, it doesn't matter what they would have done, it would have been reported. And Woody, Jim Tressel, and Urban would have been those 3 guys. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Doesn't matter what Woody like I'm and if I'm being honest, like if it wasn't like caught on live TV, I'm really surprised that Woody Hayes got fired after punching the Clemson kid. Like I could just, you know what I mean? Like because of who he was at that time, I could have just seen them being like, "Yep, whatever. Okay, you're suspended the first 4 games, whatever." You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Uh, Bear Bryant
Bear
is
Bryant.
a famous alcoholic abuser. Obviously, would be killed or shunned in today's world, but I think he's the same along the same lines as Woody Hayes,
Yeah,
Bo
Yeah.
Schembechler.
Bo Schembechler. Like those guys, like they could have like just walked down the street and like after like a night at a bar, punched a cop in the face, and the cop would have been like, "It was an honor being punched in the face by you, sir. Thank you. Now go beat the team." You know what I mean? Now go win the game. Like that. That's just like when you really think about like all the college football greats, like coach wise, they all have that aurora around them, where that like Corey said, like they're gods in their town. You know what I mean? Like even Kirby Smart right now in Georgia winning back-to-back titles. Do you think that guy's gonna get into trouble with law enforcement down there?
Oh, but his players are.
Only for drag racing.
Only, but I mean, yeah, yes, players are getting. I don't know
So
what's going
They
down
like
there with
they like
Georgia.
to race in Athens.
Well, guys, that's all I have here for today. Um, we do just want to give our little thoughts, give our thoughts and prayers to the Mallett family. The Big Ten did lose a former player. He was there at Michigan for 1 year. Ryan Mallett tragically passed at 35, 36,
35.
35 years old. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's 2 years older than us, core. Like that's, I mean, it's just crazy.
It's
So,
crazy. It's
um,
crazy.
prayers to him and his family during this time. It's absolutely wild. Um, he was
He's
a
a
great
baller
kid.
quarterback
He was a
at
great kid.
Arkansas.
Yeah. Transferred from
Stud.
Michigan to
I have his jersey.
Arkansas. Drew and I actually watched, speaking of Ryan Mallett, we actually watched his last game at Arkansas together. The Sugar Bowl, the 2010 Sugar Bowl.
Oh yeah.
We watched that together at my house. That was the kid. He was a great quarterback. Did not pan out in the NFL. But I imagine he did. He was doing what I think a lot of these former guys who don't pan out should do. He went back to his roots, went back to college or high school, and was coaching high school players, and really grooming the next generation. And just sad that his journey ended so abruptly.
Hmm.
Um, any your guys' thoughts on Ryan? Just
No, I mean, sad, unfortunate.
Yeah. Stud.
well, thanks for your time here this Sunday morning, everyone. Peace out, and we'll catch you next time.